ColorSlice offer a dedicated skin tone slider. That might sound useful at first, but in practice it often causes problems. A face never made up of just one color tone. In highlights, skin often shifts towards yellow. In shadows, it tends towards red. My Balance DCTL is a great tool to illustrate this. It highlights skin tones that align with the typical skin tone line in yellow. Tones shifting towards green or yellow appears green. Tones with a stronger red or magenta component show up as magenta. Looking at film stills, we can see a face never sits entirely on the skin tone line. It contains many color zones from yellow to magenta. Now I will intentionally push ColorSlice to the extreme. These values would be far too strong for real grading, but they clearly reveal the range affected by the skin tone slider. I'm maxing out saturation and density for red and yellow, then I will set the skin tone slider to 0. In the vectorscope we can clearly see which areas of the face are affected and which aren't. We can see that the skin tone slider only impacts a narrow range. Many natural skin tones remain untouched. A separate skin tone slider between red and yellow splits the face into color segments. This can lead to visible artifacts, false transitions or harsh breaks. To illustrate this more clearly, I've isolated faces from well-known films and placed them side by side on a plain black background. Looking at them in the vectorscope, it becomes even more obvious. Many skin tones do not sit exactly on the skin tone line. Without the original scene context, this deviation becomes more noticeable. Yet in the film, these faces still look completely natural and fitting within their environment. When we apply the skin tone slider to these images, we can clearly see which areas of the face are affected and which are not. It highlights just how limited the slider's influence is. It misses large portions of the natural skin tone spectrum. I believe skin tone should blend naturally into the overall image design. And even within the same film, skin often shifts slightly towards red in one scene and towards yellow in another, and still look consistent. That's why the skin tone line in the vectorscope or in the Balance DCTL should be understood as just that, a guideline, not a target, not a hard line every skin tone must align with, and definitely not something that needs to be explicitly corrected for. Now, some might say when working in a log color space, the slider behaves more gently than in Rec 709. And that is true, the results can appear softer, but the underlying problem remains. To demonstrate this, I push values to extremes using the ColorSlice tool with log footage. Even if you're working in a broader color space, you'll see that the tool still splits the skin into isolated color zones. When we push the adjustments hard, we start missing key parts of the face, areas that lean more towards the yellow vector and others towards red. Shifting the center point of the slider doesn't solve the issue either. It just moves the problem. You might fix one part of the face, but now the lips starts to separate unnaturally. And here's the still from the master. Joaquin Phoenix's skin tone naturally leans towards yellow. Philip Seymour Hoffman's is closer to red. If you try to use a single skin tone slider here, you end up targeting the wrong areas for both actors. This video isn't meant to judge specific tools. It's intended to encourage a closer look and inspire you to question whether something like a skin tone slider really makes sense in your workflow. I want to encourage you to test for yourself and gain hands-on experience. My own tools, including the utility DCTL, ColorShift and more, are available as free demos. You'll find the link in the video description. With the latest version of ColorShift, I left out the skin tone slider. Red and yellow sliders are fully sufficient to control skin as a coherent color surface. Actual skin tones always lie somewhere in between anyway. As I said, a free demo is available on my website. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic. Feel free to share it in the comments. Thanks for watching and see you next time.